Commander Velnoth stared at the glowing screen in front of him, his 4 eyes blinking slowly as he read the report about Earth for the 100th time this cycle. The blue and green planet floated peacefully in the display, looking so innocent, from space, but the radio signals coming from its surface told a very different story. Still reviewing the human file? Asked his assistant, Krelvan, as she entered the observation deck. Her tentacles moved nervously as she spoke. Everyone knew that Earth was Velnoth's least favorite assignment. "These creatures are impossible," Velnoth muttered, pointing at the screen. "Look at this data. They have been fighting wars for their entire recorded history. Their news broadcasts show nothing but violence and conflict. Even their entertainment is filled with battles and destruction." Krelvan moved closer to examine the readings. The monitoring station had been watching Earth for over 300 years, ever since they first detected radio signals from the primitive world. What they found was always the same: a species too savage and divided to ever join the peaceful Galactic Assembly. "Their technology is getting better," Krelvan noted, scrolling through recent observations. "They have put machines on their moon and sent probes to other planets in their system." "Barely impressive," Velnoth snorted. "They still use chemical rockets that explode half the time. Their computers are crude metal boxes, and they have not even discovered faster-than-light travel yet. Meanwhile, they continue to poison their own planet and wage wars over resources." The commander pulled up a recent transmission from Earth's surface. It showed human leaders arguing in what they called the United Nations, shouting at each other instead of working together. Another screen displayed their news reports, stories of conflicts, disasters, and political fights that never seemed to end. "The Council will ask for my recommendation again next cycle," Velnoth said with a tired sigh. "And once again I will have to tell them that humanity is not ready for contact. They are too primitive, too violent, too divided. They would bring chaos to the peaceful worlds of the Assembly." Krelvan nodded in agreement. The Galactic Assembly had rules about first contact. A species had to prove they could live in peace, protect their environment, and work together before they could join the greater galactic community. Humans failed on every measure. "At least they do not know we are watching them," she said. "Can you imagine if these violent creatures had faster-than-light travel? They would probably try to conquer other worlds." Velnoth shuddered at the thought. The Assembly had seen what happened when aggressive species gained advanced technology too quickly. Wars that lasted centuries, entire star systems destroyed. It was better to keep humanity isolated until they learned to control their violent nature. "File another Yankee report," he ordered. "Recommend continued observation with no contact. Maybe in another few hundred years, they will finally grow up." As Krelvan prepared the paperwork, Velnoth turned back to the Earth display. The planet looked so peaceful and beautiful from space. It was hard to believe that such a lovely world could produce such a dangerous species. What neither Velnoth nor any other member of the Galactic Assembly knew was that far beneath Earth's Pacific Ocean, 3 miles down in the deepest part of the sea, something incredible was hidden. Installation Prometheus stretched for kilometers along the ocean floor, its walls made of materials that did not exist in any alien database. Dr. Kim Minho walked through the main corridor of the installation, his footsteps echoing softly on the polished floor. Around him, thousands of humans worked at stations that monitored every corner of the galaxy. Holographic displays showed the locations of alien fleets, the status of their governments, and even the personal conversations of their leaders. "Status report," he called out as he entered the primary control room. "All systems normal, sir," replied Lieutenant Park Sora from her station. "The Quantum Observation Network is operating at full capacity. We are tracking 437 alien civilizations across the galaxy." Minho nodded and looked up at the massive central display. It showed a real-time map of the entire galaxy, with every alien ship, station, and planet marked in different colors. Red dots indicated military vessels, blue showed civilian traffic, and green marked important government facilities. "Any changes in the Assembly's monitoring of our surface?" he asked. "No, sir. Commander Velnoth filed his regular report yesterday. He still believes we are primitive savages who spend all our time fighting wars." Minho smiled. The deception was working perfectly. For over 2 centuries, humanity had been putting on a show for their alien watchers. Every war broadcast into space had been carefully planned. Every piece of primitive technology shown to the aliens was deliberately outdated. The real human civilization remained hidden beneath the oceans, in mountain caves, and in secret facilities around the world. Excellent, Minho said. Continue monitoring their communications. I want to know about any changes in their policies before they do. As he walked back through the installation, Minho reflected on humanity's greatest secret. They were not the primitive species the aliens believed them to be. They were the most advanced civilization in the galaxy, and they had been watching everyone else for a very long time. The question was not whether humanity was ready to join the galactic community. The question was whether the galactic community was ready to learn the truth about humanity. Dr. Lee Sora stood before the massive wall of screens in the Global Defense Council chamber, her hands moving across the holographic controls with practiced ease. Each display showed a different alien world, their cities bustling with activity while their inhabitants remained completely unaware they were being watched. Gentlemen, what you are about to see will change everything you thought you knew about our place in the universe, she announced to the 12 council members seated around the curved table. These were Earth's most powerful leaders, presidents and prime ministers who had been brought into humanity's greatest secret only after reaching the highest levels of government. President Chen Wook leaned forward in his chair, still struggling to believe what he had learned during his classified briefing 3 days ago. Dr. Lee, please explain again how long we have been able to do this. 217 years, she replied, pulling up a timeline on the central screen. It began in 1807 when our deep space monitoring stations first detected the alien observation posts watching Earth. Instead of panicking or trying to make contact, our predecessors made a different choice. They decided to learn everything about our watchers before revealing ourselves. The screens around the room flickered and changed, showing historical footage of the first hidden installations being built. Teams of the world's brightest minds working in secret, developing technology that seemed impossible even by today's standards. How did we advance so quickly without the aliens noticing? Asked Prime Minister Kim Tae, his voice filled with amazement. Captain Park Ji-ho stepped forward from his position near the wall. As head of the Surveillance Operations Division, he knew more about alien civilizations than anyone else on Earth. We learned from them, he said simply. Every piece of technology they used, every scientific principle they discovered, we observed and improved upon. But we were careful never to show our real capabilities on the surface. He gestured to one of the screens, which displayed a bustling alien city on a distant world. This is Velnoth's home planet, Kareth Prime. We know more about their defense systems than their own military commanders do. We have complete maps of their underground facilities, copies of their classified documents, and real-time access to their government communications. The council members exchanged shocked glances. The implications were staggering. Every war we have fought on the surface, every conflict broadcast to space, has been carefully controlled theater, Dr. Lee continued. We needed the aliens to believe we were primitive and violent while we built our real civilization in secret. The installations you see here represent the true human society, one that exists beneath the oceans, inside mountains, and in hidden complexes around the world. She pressed another control, and the screen showed the interior of Installation Prometheus, the massive underwater facility where they now stood. Thousands of humans worked at advanced stations, their technology decades ahead of anything the surface world had seen. The quantum entanglement communication system allows us to observe any point in the galaxy instantly, without sending any detectable signals, Captain Park explained. We can watch their military exercises, read their diplomatic messages, and even monitor their private conversations. They have no idea we exist. Minister Yoon Nari raised her hand. But why maintain the deception for so long? Why not reveal ourselves and join this galactic assembly? Dr. Lee's expression grew serious. Because we discovered something troubling about our galactic neighbors. Despite their advanced technology and claims of enlightened civilization, they are just as divided and tribal as humans were centuries ago. They fight constant small wars, engage in political backstabbing, and discriminate against species they consider inferior. The screens changed again, showing classified alien military reports and diplomatic communications that revealed the ugly truth behind the Assembly's peaceful facade. Border conflicts between member species, trade wars, and territorial disputes that never made it into official records. The Assembly preaches unity and peace but practices the same old politics of fear and suspicion, Captain Park added. They keep species like us in quarantine, not just for our protection, but because they are afraid of competition. They want to maintain their position at the top of the galactic hierarchy. President Chen-wook sat back in his chair, processing the information. So we have been building our strength while they believe we are harmless primitives. Exactly, Dr. Lee confirmed. Our hidden civilization has surpassed theirs in almost every way. Our ships are faster, our weapons more advanced, our artificial intelligence systems more sophisticated. But most importantly, we have something they lack: true unity of purpose. She gestured around the room at the council members from different nations. The surface world still shows divisions and conflicts because that is what the aliens expect to see. But down here, in our real society, humanity learned to work together centuries ago. We had to, in order to maintain this secret. The weight of the revelation settled over the council chamber. Humanity was not the watched, they were the watchers. Not the primitive species waiting for contact, but the advanced civilization deciding whether their galactic neighbors were worth revealing themselves to. The question now, Dr. Lee concluded, is what we do with this advantage. Do we continue to remain hidden and let the galaxy continue as it has? Or do we prepare for the day when humanity steps out of the shadows and shows the universe what we have really become? The council members looked at each other, knowing that whatever they decided would change the course of galactic history forever. The alarms started screaming at 0347 hours Galactic Standard Time. Dr. Yoon Nari jolted awake. In her quarters deep within Installation Olympus, the mountain facility hidden beneath the Swiss Alps, red warning lights flashed through the corridors as she ran toward the command center, her bare feet slapping against the cold metal floors. "Report," she shouted as she burst through the doors of the main operations room. The massive chamber buzzed with activity as hundreds of technicians worked frantically at their stations. Every screen showed the same terrifying sight: black ships emerging from the void between galaxies, moving toward inhabited systems like a plague of metal locusts. Captain Han Jisoo looked up from his command station, his face pale with shock. "They call themselves the Void Seekers, ma'am. Machine intelligences from outside our galaxy. They appeared simultaneously at 17 different star systems and began consuming everything in sight." Dr. Yoon moved to the central holographic display, watching in horror as entire planets disappeared into the alien constructs. The machines worked with terrifying efficiency, breaking down matter at the atomic level and using it to build more ships for their expanding fleet. "How long before they reach the core worlds?" she asked. "At their current speed, 6 months, replied Lieutenant Kim Seo from her monitoring station. "But ma'am, that's not the worst part. The Galactic Assembly's response has been a complete disaster." The screens changed to show emergency broadcasts from across the galaxy. Alien leaders argued and blamed each other instead of coordinating their defense. Military commanders refused to share resources with rival species. Some civilizations were already abandoning their worlds rather than fight. Admiral Cho Hyun entered the command center, still putting on his uniform jacket. As head of the Global Defense Fleet, he had been awakened by the same alarms. "Status of the Assembly's military response?" "Pathetic," Captain Han replied bluntly. "They lost 3 entire battle fleets in the first day. Their weapons barely scratch. The Void Seekers' hulls and their ships are too slow to escape once engaged. The enemy is adapting to their tactics faster than they can change them." Dr. Yoon watched the tactical displays with growing dismay. The mighty Galactic Assembly, with all their advanced technology and claims of superiority, was crumbling within days. Species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia were fleeing like frightened animals. "Are they sending any requests for help?" Admiral Cho asked. Lieutenant Kim nodded grimly. Desperate pleas on all frequencies. They're even broadcasting toward Earth's solar system now, hoping we might have some primitive weapons they can use. Commander Velnoth personally sent a message, asking if humans could provide raw materials or serve as soldiers. The irony was bitter. The same aliens who had dismissed humanity as worthless savages were now begging for help from the species they had kept in quarantine for centuries. Sir, incoming priority transmission from Installation Prometheus, announced Technician Park Min from his communications station. Dr. Kim Minho is requesting an emergency council session. Within hours, the Global Defense Council had assembled in the secure conference room. Leaders from all major installations appeared as holograms around the circular table, their faces showing the same mixture of shock and grim determination. The situation is clear, Dr. Kim Minho began without preamble. The Void Seekers represent an extinction-level threat to all organic life in the galaxy. If they are not stopped, every civilization will fall, including our own. President Li Dong raised his hand. But why should we risk ourselves for the species that have treated us like dangerous primitives? Let them face the consequences of their arrogance. Because the Void Seekers won't stop with this galaxy, Dr. Yoon interjected from her seat. Our deep space sensors show more fleets massing in the void beyond our galactic borders. If we let them consume everything here, they will be even stronger when they eventually find Earth. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity could remain hidden and safe for now, but eventually the machine plague would reach their solar system. When that happened, they would face an enemy that had grown impossibly powerful by consuming an entire galaxy. There's another factor, too. Consider, added Admiral Cho. Our analysis shows that the Void Seekers' technology is based on principles similar to our own quantum systems. We might be the only civilization capable of fighting them effectively. Captain Han pulled up tactical displays showing the enemy's weaknesses. Their ships coordinate through quantum networks just like ours, but their system has flaws that we can exploit because we understand the technology better than they do. The debate continued for hours. Some council members argued for remaining hidden and letting the galaxy burn. Others insisted that humanity had a moral obligation to help, regardless of how they had been treated. But gradually, one argument became impossible to ignore. If we act now, we save billions of lives and face the Void Seekers while they're still relatively weak, Dr. Kim Minho summarized. If we wait, we face them alone after they've consumed everything else and become unstoppable. The vote was taken in solemn silence. 12 hands raised in favor of intervention. 0 opposed. For the first time in over 2 centuries, humanity would reveal itself to the galaxy, not as the primitive species the aliens expected, but as the advanced civilization they had never imagined. The question was whether the galaxy would survive the shock of learning the truth. Commander Velnoth stood on the bridge of his dying ship, watching helplessly as the Void Seekers tore through the last defenses of his home world. Karath Prime burned below them, its beautiful blue oceans turning black as the machine swarm consumed everything in their path. His fleet of 200 vessels had been reduced to 30 in just 3 hours of fighting. Sir, we're receiving surrender demands from the enemy, reported his communications officer, her voice shaking with terror. They want us to shut down our engines and prepare to be processed. Velnoth closed his 4 eyes in despair. After 3 centuries of commanding the most powerful military force in the sector, he was about to watch his civilization die. The Galactic Assembly's combined fleets had proven useless against these creatures from the void. Their weapons did no damage, their shields offered no protection, and their fastest ships could barely outrun the enemy's slowest scouts. Sir, the sensor operator's voice cracked with excitement. Unknown contacts emerging from hyperspace, massive energy signatures, unlike anything in our databases. Velnoth opened his eyes to see impossible shapes materializing around his doomed world. Ships that dwarfed the largest assembly dreadnoughts slid silently into formation, their sleek hulls gleaming with an inner light that seemed to bend reality around them. The vessels moved with a grace that defied physics, positioning themselves between the Void Seekers and the remaining defenders without any apparent effort. How many ships? Velnoth whispered. 50. No, wait. The readings keep changing. Sir, I think they're using some kind of dimensional technology. The ship seemed to exist in multiple spaces at once. Before Velnoth could respond, every communication system on his ship activated simultaneously. A clear, calm voice spoke in perfect Karathi, with no trace of the translation static that plagued most interspecies communication. Commander Velnoth, this is Captain Han Jisoo of the Human Defense Fleet. We're here to help. Please move your remaining ships to the coordinates we're transmitting and maintain minimum safe distance. Velnoth's heart stopped beating for a moment. Human? Did she say human? The mysterious ships opened fire before he could process the impossibility of what he had heard. Beams of pure energy lanced out from their weapons, striking the Void Seekers with surgical precision. But these were not the crude energy blasts of assembly technology. The human weapons seemed to reach into the enemy ships and tear them apart, from within, unmaking the molecular bonds that held the machine constructs together. Within minutes, the unstoppable Void Seeker fleet was reduced to drifting scrap metal. The mechanical horrors that had consumed dozens of worlds died so quickly that their quantum communication network had no time to adapt or call for reinforcements. This is impossible, breathed Velnoth's tactical officer. The primitive species from that quarantine world, they just destroyed an entire Void Seeker fleet without taking a single casualty. The main view screen flickered to life, showing the interior of one of the human ships. A young woman in a simple uniform looked out at them with dark eyes that seemed far too knowing for someone from a primitive world. Behind her, Velnoth could see technology that made assembly science look like children's toys. Commander, I know this must be confusing for you, Captain Han said gently. We have a lot to explain and not much time before the next wave arrives. Are you willing to listen? Before Velnoth could answer, another voice joined the transmission. This one was older, belonging to a human male who appeared on a separate screen. Commander Velnoth, this is Dr. Kim Minho. We've been monitoring your civilization for quite some time. We know about your observations of Earth, your classification of humanity as primitive, and your decision to keep us in quarantine. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of damaged systems. Every member of Velnoth's crew stared at the screens in shock. That's right, Dr. Kim continued. We've been watching you watch us for over 2 centuries. Every report you filed about human primitiveness, every recommendation to maintain our isolation, every secret assembly meeting about the dangerous Earth species, we heard it all. Velnoth felt his legs go weak. But your radio transmissions, the wars, the violence, the primitive technology, theater, Captain Han said simply. We've been putting on a show for your observation post while building our real civilization in places you never thought to look. Under the oceans, inside mountains, in dimensions parallel to your normal space. Humanity grew up in secret while you believed we were savages. The implications hit Velnoth like a physical blow. If humans had been watching them for centuries, they knew everything. Military secrets, diplomatic communications, the locations of hidden bases. Humanity had been gathering intelligence on the entire galaxy while pretending to be primitive. The Void Seekers are not finished, Dr. Kim continued, his expression growing serious. This was just their advance force. The main fleet is still coming, and it's larger than anything the Assembly can handle. But we've been preparing for this threat since we first detected it approaching our galaxy 3 years ago. 3 years? Velnoth whispered. You knew they were coming and said nothing? Would you have believed us? Captain Han asked. Would the Assembly have listened to warnings from a species they considered too primitive for contact? Velnoth had no answer. The truth was painful, but undeniable. The Assembly would have dismissed any warnings from Earth as impossible lies. We're going to save your galaxy, Dr. Kim announced. Not because we owe you anything, but because it's the right thing to do. The question is whether you can handle learning who we really are. 6 months had passed since the last Void Seeker ship went silent, and the galaxy was still struggling to understand what had happened. Commander Velnoth stood in what used to be the Grand Assembly Chamber on Kareth Prime, watching human engineers work alongside alien technicians to rebuild the damaged infrastructure. The sight still felt impossible to him. The humans worked with quiet efficiency that made the old assembly bureaucracy look like chaos. When food shortages hit the outer rim worlds, human supply ships appeared within days. When refugees needed shelter, human construction teams built temporary cities faster than anyone thought possible. They didn't ask for permission or hold committee meetings. They simply saw problems and solved them. "Commander, the new Galactic Council session is about to begin," announced his aide, Lieutenant Krelvan. She had adapted to the new reality better than most, though her tentacles still twitched nervously whenever humans were around. Velnoth nodded and walked toward the rebuilt council chamber. The room looked completely different now. Gone were the elevated seats that put certain species above others. Instead, simple circular tables allowed everyone to meet as equals. Human representatives sat alongside alien diplomats, but they didn't try to dominate the discussions. Captain Hanjisu stood at the center of the room, addressing the assembled delegates. She wore the same simple uniform she had worn during the battle, with no medals or symbols of rank. Behind her, a holographic display showed the current state of galactic reconstruction. "The emergency food distribution is complete," she reported. "All refugee camps have been upgraded to permanent housing. Trade routes have been restored to 93% of pre-invasion levels. Medical supplies have been distributed to every world that requested them." A delegate from the Zephyrian Republic raised his hand. "Captain Han, we are grateful for the assistance, but we must ask, what does humanity want in return? No species provides this level of aid without expecting something back." Captain Han smiled, and Velnoth noticed how different human expressions were from the calculating looks he was used to seeing in diplomatic meetings. There was something honest about it that made him uncomfortable. "We want what we've always wanted," she replied, "to be left alone to develop our civilization in peace. The difference is that now you know we exist. But surely you must want territory, resources, trade agreements," pressed another delegate. "Your technology is clearly superior to ours. You could demand anything." Dr. Kim Minho stepped forward from his position near the wall. As humanity's chief diplomatic representative, he had been trying to explain human motivations to confused alien governments for months. "You're thinking like the old assembly," he said gently. "Everything based on competition, hierarchy, and fear that others might become more powerful than you. Humanity learned a different lesson from watching your civilizations for 2 centuries. He gestured to the display behind Captain Han, which now showed comparative data on resource usage and population growth across the galaxy. "We saw that your constant competition and territorial disputes wasted enormous amounts of energy and resources. While you were fighting over trade routes and border worlds, you could have been exploring new galaxies or developing technologies to improve life for everyone." Velnoth found himself nodding despite his confusion. The data was clear. The assembly had spent more resources on military buildup and political maneuvering than on scientific advancement or humanitarian aid. "So you're saying humanity wants to help us be better?" asked the Zephyrian delegate, his voice filled with skepticism. "We want to work with civilizations that are interested in growth rather than dominance," Captain Han replied. "The old assembly model clearly didn't work. The Void Seekers nearly destroyed you because you couldn't coordinate an effective defense. Every species was more worried about protecting their own interests than saving the galaxy." The room fell, silent as the delegates absorbed this criticism. It was harsh but undeniably true. Dr. Kim activated a new display showing the proposed structure for galactic cooperation. "We're offering membership in a new alliance based on mutual benefit rather than hierarchy. Share resources and knowledge freely, coordinate responses to external threats, and respect each species' right to develop their own culture and government." "And if we refuse?" asked a delegate from the Hegemony Council. "Then you refuse," Captain Han said simply. "We won't force anyone to join, but we also won't provide advanced technology or military protection to civilizations that choose to maintain the old competitive model." Velnoth watched the other delegates exchange worried glances. The choice was clear but difficult. Join humanity's alliance and give up the power games that had defined galactic politics for millennia, or try to rebuild the old system without access to the advanced technology that had saved them from extinction, Commander Velnoth. Captain Han addressed him directly. Your people have been watching humans longer than anyone else. What do you think about our proposal? Velnoth stood slowly, feeling the weight of history on his shoulders. His species had spent centuries studying humanity and completely misjudged what they were seeing. Now these former primitives were offering to share the galaxy as equals. I think, he said carefully, that humanity has already proven their point. You could have left us to die and inherited an empty galaxy. Instead, you saved civilizations that had dismissed you as worthless. That tells me more about your character than any diplomatic treaty could. He looked around the room at his fellow delegates. Perhaps it's time we stopped thinking like conquerors and started thinking like partners. The vote to join humanity's new galactic alliance was not unanimous, but it was decisive. The age of the old assembly was over. The galaxy would never be the same, and for the first time in centuries, that felt like a good thing.